From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Well, the great Jimmy Carter died. We've talked about him here on The Log many times. I want to devote this program to him, just a simple tribute in our own weak way. These are three pieces that originally aired on the other podcast, Charles Purcell Presents, that feature Jimmy Carter. So, just for our own selfish purposes and as our little homage and expression of love, I thought I'd share these pieces. The first is called The Secret Life of Sweaters, and then one we did just recently, The Man Who Saved the Election, a lighthearted look at how Jimmy Carter cast the tie-breaking vote to put Kamala Harris in the White House. A little alternative political fiction. And then close with my story, personal true story of when I had the privilege of meeting Jimmy Carter. So I hope you enjoy it.
The Secret Lives of Sweaters. Consider Ed Jardetsky, professor of sociology at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Ask anyone on campus about the affable yet sometimes caustic Professor Ed, as his students call him. We found said students at a favorite tossed pasta bar on campus.
Professor Ed is the best. Everybody loves him. He's got this ritual where he comes into the room and during his opening lecture, take off his sweater and very carefully folds it and places it on a cabinet next to some papers and lab equipment. Kind of a reverse Mr. Rogers.
Few people are more associated with sweater wearing than the universally beloved Fred Rogers on the long-running PBS children's series Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
But if you're familiar with the program, especially its iconic opening and closing, you'll discern a difference between Mr. Rogers and Professor Ed.
Look at him. He's hanging up his sweater in the closet on a hanger.
Professor Ed.
This is just so wrong.
On a subject that brings out more his caustic side than his affable side.
Everybody knows you don't put sweaters on a hanger. And here he is, this ubiquitous television superstar, setting this absolutely heinous example for millions of impressionable young children who love him and hang on his every word.
No pun intended.
Pun very much intended.
When I'm able to calm Professor Ed down, I ask him to explain his own reverse Rogers ritual.
Well, of course, the optimal time to wear a sweater is in the early part of the day, when temperatures are on average cooler by anywhere from 5 to 13 degrees Celsius than temperatures in the mid to late afternoon. That, of course, is the beauty of the sweater and its primary functional design. That is, it is designed, intended by its very nature, to be taken on and off as conditions prescribe.
Not so the case for another famous sweater wearer.
You never see him put the sweater on or take it off. It's just always there.
Television critic and host of the podcast What's On, Saul Kukinis.
And you never see the same sweater twice. It's not realistic. I mean, right? Seriously.
Of course, Bill Cosby's character, Dr. Huxtable, did his famous sweaters symbolize something?
Sure, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. Probably not. That guy was just fucked up.
From the dude and his heavy rib-knit cardigan, to Ferris Bueller and his defiant sweater vest, to Scooby-Doo's Velma and her oversized turtleneck, Hollywood has provided its share of famous sweater wearers, but it was the world of politics, not the movies, that provided us with Sweatergate.
Good evening. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks since I became president. I've spent a lot of time deciding how I can be a good president. This talk, which the broadcast network...
So, of course, it was the beginning of the end of the Carter presidency, the whole sweater thing.
Elaine Strugnell is the John Stuart Mill Chair of Socio-Political Semiotics at Iowa State University.
So, here's this very reasonable, honest, forthright, lovely man imploring Americans to save energy.
U.S. President Jimmy Carter infamously wore a Mr. Rogers-style tan cardigan in a 1977 FDR-styled fireside chat. The pundits all agreed on the symbolic intent of the sweater, as a totem of energy conservation.
So, as it turns out, the sweater was only inadvertently symbolic. That is to say, President Carter just happened to be wearing the sweater at dinner and left it on for his primetime address to the nation.
And he was mocked by his critics for the sweater.
So, yes, he was pilloried by any number of critics and commentators.
And this was only 2 weeks into his presidency.
So, that's right, not a good start.
This 1977 fireside chat is not to be confused with President Carter's so-called malaise speech.
So, right, that was 2.5 years later, and if the Cardigan chat was the beginning of the end, then the crisis of confidence speech, he never used the word malaise, by the way, that was the label, of course, given by his political enemies, of whom there were many by the summer of 1979. If the Cardigan incident was the beginning of the end, then the crisis of confidence speech was really the end.
Did he wear the cardigan for the 1979 speech?
So, no, not at all. That address was given in the standard suit and tie, seated at his desk in the Oval Office. It's a shame, really. He was simply asking us Americans to be our better selves, to be humble, to be prudent, to be kind, to be gentle to the earth, cognizant of how our actions impact future generations. Of course, it was politically ruinous. No politician has championed that message since. Indeed, quite the opposite. Very, very sad when you consider the choices we've made as a people.
It is time for us to join hands in America. Let us commit ourselves together to a rebirth of the American spirit, working together with our common faith. We cannot fail. Thank you and good night.
Hey, Grandpa.
Well, hello, little Billy. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I just came over to see how you were and to say hello. And
I was just getting ready for bed.
oh, okay. Well, here, I'll tuck you in. You want to hear a story?
Oh, Grandpa, not another one of your stories.
But this may be one of the most important stories of all.
Sure it is.
No, it is. And it's got lots of drama and action and a big surprise ending.
Well,
Come on now.
okay.
Now, this is the true story of the man who saved the election.
Saved the election? Joe Biden?
No. Well, yes, in a way, but that's another story. Now, once upon a time, in 2024, in a strange and magical land called the United States of America.
A strange and magical land?
Yes, a strange and magical land.
I thought you said this was a true story.
Well, it is.
America is a strange and magical land?
Well, what would you call it when these two major candidates are tied in the polls just a few short weeks from Election Day, and one of them is a convicted felon found guilty of fraud, fined hundreds of millions of dollars for defamation and sexual assault, blackmailed a foreign leader to get him to lie and say he found dirt on his political opponent, plus dozens of credible allegations of rape and countless adjudicated decisions for housing discrimination, bogus charities where he literally stole money from poor people, a scam university, every huckster grift in the book, his blatant Hitler-esque dehumanization of immigrants, his selfish, reckless, and buffoonish bungling of the COVID pandemic resulted in hundreds of thousands of avoidable American deaths. Not to mention his attempts to collude with Russia to influence the 2016 election, indicted for attempting a coup against the nation, trying to steal the 2020 election by hatching a fake elector scheme, and then directing a violent assault on the Capitol and promising to pardon J6 insurrectionists who he calls patriots.
With all of that, half the voters say they're going to vote for him?
He even cheats at golf and claims to be champion of tournaments that never happened, like he's f***ing Kim Jong-un or something. Now, wouldn't you call that strange?
Yeah, that's strange, all right.
And I didn't even bring up the bizarre orange makeup and the crazy comb-over.
But, Grandpa, do we really know enough detail about Kamala Harris's economic plans?
What?
Just kidding, Grandpa.
Oh, very funny, yeah.
Okay, so, strange, yes. But magical?
Well, it takes a kind of magical thinking for these MAGA folks to somehow think that a vote for their guy is in anybody's best interest, let alone their own.
You got a point there.
Okay. So in a strange and magical place called the United States of America in 2024, there was a presidential election. One candidate promised to be a dictator, to put his political enemies in jail, and to shoot anybody who protested him in the leg.
He didn't really do that.
The shooting in the leg thing?
Yeah, he didn't really say that, did he?
Well, yes, he did. In fact, his party, the Republican Party, in some states, they've already passed laws that make it legal to run down protesters with your car.
That could never happen.
Oh, yes, it did. It's real. It's already happened. You can Google it.
Why would anyone vote for this guy?
Nobody knows. That's what made it so strange.
And magical.
Yes, well, frankly, yes, magical. In a black magic kind of way. Like people were taken over by some sort of spell.
Wait, is this a horror story like for Halloween? I thought it was more like an uplifting story, like for Christmas.
Christmas?
Yeah, like the man who saved the election, kind of like so-and-so saves Christmas. It's kind of a trope.
Oh, yeah, that's good. I like that. Let's go with that. It was a dark and stormy time in America. The evil presidential candidate, Conald Skunk, was rampaging across the country, from Arizona and Nevada in the west, to North Carolina and Georgia in the south, and on to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, spreading his dystopian message and his wicked promises of revenge and retribution, of dictatorship and the end of democracy, all for his own riches and the glory of his own massive and twisted ego.
Wait, this is uplifting?
Well, hey, we got to establish the stakes. They're pretty damn high,
Okay, but seriously, Grandpa, I think we get it. And I thought you said this was a true story.
Well, it is.
So, what's that name you said?
Oh, you mean the name of the candidate?
Yeah.
Conald Skunk.
Yeah, who's that?
Oh, well, I can't say his real name.
Why not?
I go into a dread-induced panic attack. I literally can't say it. It won't come out of my mouth.
Oh, so Conald...
Yes, Conald, because he's a con man, and he's old.
Oh, okay, I get it. And it sort of sounds like his real name.
Yes, that's right. So anyway, Election Day was drawing closer and closer, and everyone was very worried because the race was neck and neck, right down to the wire, between Kamala Harris and Conald Skunk. Just weeks, and then only days before November 5th. Everyone was anxiously watching the swing state polls. Now, on election night, the results started coming in. All but the swing states have reported. The electoral count stands at 227 for Harris, 218 for Skunk. Harris is in the lead, but the winner needs 270 electoral votes to win. The nation anxiously watches the returns. The first state to report of the swing states, North Carolina, a big 16 electoral vote count goes to the Republicans. Now it's 227 to 234 with Conald Skunk in the lead. The next state to report is Wisconsin. 10 votes, they go blue. Now it's 237-234, Harris with a slim lead. Michigan comes in. 15 electoral votes goes to Harris. She widens her lead. It's now 252 to 234, and the nation is on tenterhooks. Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Georgia still to report. Now comes Arizona out of the West. 11 electoral votes for the Republicans. But Harris still holds a lead, 252 to 245. A key state for the Democrats, it's Nevada, with 6 big electoral votes goes to Harris, and she widens her lead. It's now 258 to 245. Pennsylvania and Georgia, 2 big ones. Oh, here we go, folks. Pennsylvania looks like they're ready to report. 19 votes. It's close. It's declared for Conald Skunk takes Pennsylvania and takes the electoral lead 258 to 264. And that's where we stand, with only Georgia still to report. 258 for Harris, 264 for Skunk. Remember, the winner needs 270, neither one of them there. Yet, the winner of Georgia wins the election. We wait, and finally, the report comes in from Georgia. No winner declared yet. They're reporting that Georgia, with its 16 votes, the tally from Georgia as we stand and the nation watches, the tally is tied. It's right down to the last vote. 2,472,863 votes for each candidate. It's a tie. And the polls in Georgia are just about to close. It looks like Georgia will end in a tie, meaning no candidate reaches the 270 needed to win.
Well, what happens then?
The decision is thrown over to the U.S. House of Representatives.
Wait, you mean the House just gets to throw every vote into the garbage and just decide themselves?
Yep.
Well, what kind of crazy system is this?
Hey, what can I tell you? The enslavers and the powdered wigs wrote the Constitution. That's just the way it works.
Well, that's crazy.
Yep. Anyway, expecting a tie in Georgia, resulting in neither candidate reaching 270. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, gavel in hand, is ready to call the vote in the House of Representatives and declare Conald Skunk the winner. The clock was ticking. The polls were about to close, just moments from now. It will take a miracle to save the election.
What's this?
It's lifelong Democratic Georgia voter and centenarian former president Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter! They're wheeling him in.
What are you doing here, peanut breath? Presidential candidate and would-be MAGA dictator Conald Skunk. What are you doing here? That's right, it's me, your favorite president, Conald Skunk. Get out of here, you failed President Jimmy Carter. You're too old to vote. No, he's not. Get out of the way now. Clear the way.
Hey, watch out for those cords.
What are all those cords and cables?
Well, that's the life support equipment keeping him alive. It's all plugged into that long extension cord.
Life support equipment, huh?
Well, give him his ballot. Give him his ballot already. All righty then. Name?
It's Jimmy Carter.
He has to say it himself.
Jimmy Carter.
All right then. Now just let me find you in my book. Hurry! Hurry! All righty then. Can you confirm your address?
209 Woodland Drive, please.
That's right. All righty then. Here's your ballot.
He's gonna make it. Jimmy Carter, you'll never vote.
Hey, look, Conald Skunk pulled the plug on President Carter's life support.
Oh no, President Carter's gonna die before he can vote.
Vote, President
Come
Carter.
on now, vote. Die, you old toothy bastard.
You can do it, Mr. President.
Hey, I'm the only Mr. President around here. Oh, no, you're not. And never again, Conald Skunk.
Yeah, never again, Conald Skunk. Fill in the bubble, President Carter. Fill in the bubble.
What's he doing? What's taking him so long?
He's voting for all the down ballot candidates.
Forget about the down ballot races, President Carter.
There's no time.
He'll never make it. The polls are about to close. The clock is ticking. Forget about the clock. He's gonna die before he can finish.
Well, plug him back in. Plug him back in.
Where's the cord?
Conald Skunk has it.
No, I don't. You're hiding it behind your back. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Come on now, give me that. Oh, give me the code. Come on now.
He did it. He did it. He did it. He voted. And he's still alive.
It's too late, skunk. You've lost. Jimmy Carter voted for Kamala Harris. Oh, no, not yet. He has to put his ballot thingy in the slot there in the voting doohickey to make it official. Here, I'll help you, President Carter. Oh, no. He's got to put the ballot in himself. That's the rule. Well, I can wheel him over to the voting machine.
We're losing him.
Without life support, he'll never make it.
Put your ballot in the machine, President Carter.
Time's running out. The polls are about to close. 5, 4, 3, 2,
Put it in.
1.
Thank you, President Carter. Here's your I voted sticker. He's still alive.
Quick, plug him in. Curses, I would have won if it wasn't for you meddling voters and your old wrinkled hero here.
Hey, everybody, quiet. They're about to announce the final count.
The final count in Georgia, Carnold Skunk, 2,472,863 votes. Kamala Harris, 2,472,864 votes. Kamala Harris is the winner of Georgia's 16 electoral votes. That makes the total electoral college count. Carnold Skunk, 264 electoral votes. Kamala Harris, 274 electoral votes. With Kamala Harris winning the requisite 270, Kamala Harris wins the 2024 national presidential election and is president-elect of the United States of America. It's rigged. Riggedy rig. You're all a bunch of dirty riggers. You Carnold Skunk.
Hey, look, everybody. It's President-elect Kamala Harris.
Yay!
And that's how Jimmy Carter saved the election?
Well, that's right. He saved the whole country.
He saved the whole world.
And President Carter went on to live happily ever after for many years to come and was honored and beloved by a grateful nation. I was a young guy, and just a few years earlier, in 1976, I had turned 18 years old and cast my first ever ballot for Jimmy Carter. And I was always very happy about that, proud to cast that vote. So several years later, I'm still a young guy. What am I, 24, 5, something like that. I had a girlfriend at the time in show business, and she was doing a gig in Atlanta. She was doing some theater down there. I was living in California at the time. So I flew down to Atlanta to spend some time with my girlfriend. And one Sunday morning, she had a Sunday matinee to do. I thought, you know what? I'm not that far from Plains. I'm going to drive down to Plains, see if I can see Jimmy Carter. I didn't even know if he'd be there, but I figured, well, I'll go to his church because I heard, he's always at church on a Sunday, teaching his Sunday school classes. So I'll just go down to Plains. I'll just drive down there in my rented car, see if I can find him. So I did. Jumped in my car. Beautiful drive. If you've never been to the South, especially, not just the freeways, but especially the off-roads, the side roads, the country roads, oh, it's beautiful. A kind of green you just don't see anywhere else. Lush, beautiful. This was summertime. Really beautiful. So it was a nice drive. Running a little bit late. I'm afraid I'm going to miss it. I wasn't even sure which church, but I knew Plains was a very small town, so I kind of just drove around and looked for a church. Found one, went in. Whoop, that's the wrong church. Okay, get back in my car. Took me just a couple of minutes, and there I was at Jimmy Carter's church. The service was just about to begin. I walked timidly through the back door, the main door, find myself a little seat, try to be inconspicuous. And it's just a small crowd. Place wasn't packed. Small church, congregation. You could tell a few were tourists like me, fans. And I got there just in time to hear the preacher, the guy in charge, kind of giving the ground rules. He said, yes, President Carter is here, and he'd be very happy to meet you after the service. He'd be very happy to pose for a picture with you if you care to do that. He requests, please, no autographs. I wasn't sure why, but he said no autographs. Okay. So those are the ground rules. So I sit through the service, and afterwards, on this beautiful summer day, a warm, moist breeze greeted us as we all left the church, and there was a kind of a wooden walkway, kind of a deck porch outside of the side of the church. And I hung back, kind of shy, as President Carter greeted well-wishers. And they spoke for a moment, and took a picture, and shook hands. And finally, I couldn't put it off anymore because everyone took off. And there I am, standing there. Just me and Jimmy. It was pretty great. And I was a mess. I was shy, nervous. I just looked at him. I shook his small, frail hand, and I just said, thank you. I couldn't come up with anything else. That's all I said. I just said, thank you. And he was very kind, of course, as you would imagine. He looks you right in the eye, that little smile, that famous smile. And we made a little chit-chat. I have no idea what we said. Obviously he could sense my ineptness, but was very kind about it. So we made a little talk. I didn't have a camera with me, so no picture. I did muster up the nerve to say, I know you're not signing autographs, but I wonder if you'd make an exception and sign your memoir, which I had bought recently. And I brought it to Atlanta with me with this idea in mind that I might get a chance to meet him. So he said, sure, I'll sign the book. I'll autograph your book. And I said, it's really not my book. It's my mother's. I gave it to her as a gift because she was a big fan of yours, and as am I. So would you sign it for my mother? He said, sure. And it was only then that I realized I had left the book in my car. Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. I left it in my car. I'll go get it. And then he does an amazing thing. Jimmy Carter looks at me and says, well, I'll walk with you. So there's no parking lot. It's just all grass. We're all parked on the grass. And I was one of the last ones to arrive, the last one to arrive, so I'm at the far end of this little grassy area where people had parked. So we had a good, at least 20, 30 yards to walk. And we walked to the car. Again, chit-chat that I have no memory of at all. I don't remember what we talked about. Just me and Jimmy Carter. I get the book out of the car. He signs it for me, wishes me well. I thank him again. And he turns and walks back to the church. And I just stood there in a moment that I knew would be with me for the rest of my life. And I watched him walk back to the church. And it was only then that I noticed the Secret Service agents at various locations. Of course, they'd been with us the whole time, but I never noticed. So he walked back in the church. I got back in my car, feeling a bit lightheaded about the whole thing. Yeah, I had met my hero. And not only that, I got to have a real moment with him. And I got to thank him.